Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Hi, I'm Ace.
Hi.
Our reading comes from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, on the basis of God's mercy, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable act of worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of yourselves more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and not all the members have the same function. So we, who are many, are one body in Christ, and individually we are members one of another.
Hey y'all, I'm sitting today. So I'm about to invite someone up. I'll give him the cue. He's looking for that. So we're doing this new series called Passions, where we're going to get to know each other a little better and what we're passionate about. So this scripture reading I picked in particular in response to a conversation me and Cameron had earlier this week, because I believe Cameron is someone who's been transformed in many ways throughout his life, and is being freed and is inviting us into freedom. And so I'm eager to hear what he brings, what we have. This is very unstructured. I was like, I can give you questions, and then both of us were like, no, let's not do questions. We're just going to go with it. So who knows? We'll have a response at the end where if you want to ask questions, or if there's stuff that comes up that connects to your own passions or your own story, we can talk about that. But I want to welcome Cameron Fielder up. Welcome. I should have a table so we could have cool coffee cups together. So, Cameron, we've all met you, but people may not know where you're from, your background, what brings you here, anything you want to tell us that's good. Intro information.
Oh God. How do you go from like a passionate letter of Paul that's like on fire? Like, where are you from? Where were you born? Give us the boring details.
Yeah, good point.
I'm from California. I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
We have several Californians here.
I just like this. I'll tell people, they'll say, where are you from? I said this to someone, they didn't get it. Where are you from? I said, I'm from west of Arizona, but south of Oregon. And they're like, what does that mean? But I like waited tables at Kirby Lane, and my girlfriend, wife, I call her my wedding averse wife, because like if we broke up, like the law would be involved for sure, but like she just doesn't want the veil and the rings and she's kind of deep in this way, like she doesn't want to hear about God, and it's like, she had 2 cancers during COVID. She had breast cancer and lymphoma at the same time, and like, she didn't even like bat an eyelash. Like, she stared right into the abyss, and my parents will say like, well, how's her spirituality? It's like, I don't stop to question it, because I saw her stare into the abyss and be like basically okay with it. Like, I've had enough. Whereas me, I'm like a little baby. I get a sore throat. I get acid reflux, and I'm like, well, no, God, I am Job, you've forsaken me. And she's like, so tough. So I guess Lisa, my partner, I had a crush on her since 2nd grade. And I told her last night, I'm like, you're perfect, and you might say that I'm idealizing you, but like, come at my axioms. Like, let me like disprove your perfection. Like, you're especially kind to children. You're gorgeous like a model. You're good at art. Like, she's visionary at art. Her art is like, I almost thought of asking her to bring over stained glass today because it is so beautiful, right? And I think that's the relief of like Christianity for me, is like, that's my passion. We talked with you and your friend, and I told you guys at the end, like, I agape you. Like, love is like loaded. It's hallmarky, it's syrupy, right? But I just met your friend, but like we vibed for the afternoon, or a few hours. Like, And giving the credit to other people's genius is the point of the thing. Like, they come to John the Baptist, are you the Christ? Oh no, you just missed him. But there's Jesus of Nazareth, he's cool, right? Then 2 people follow him. And that's the vibe, is like always seeing other people's genius, because like where there are 2 or 3 or more of you, I'm in your midst, right? Which means like being a genius isn't a great thing to be, which is why Jesus always deflects it.
And I think it's an interesting point because I would say Cameron is a genius in many ways, and he will be humble about this, but I think it's the burden and the gift at the same time of being brilliant and smart and having these energies. And I think that's a hard part of passion, is it's both the thing you love to do and the thing that you suffer through. So I'm curious, what would you define as your passions? To get the conversation rolling.
I think like sensitivity, and I think like the art that I brought you today is just me like finally, because I got an MFA in creative writing and I was like trying to win the Pulitzer, and I was like writing in this way that I could see that like there was truth there, but there was like so much energy expelled on like trying to make it. Saul Bellows said of Hemingway, and it like captured exactly why I don't like Hemingway. Saul Bellows said, Hemingway writes like someone who thinks he deserves credit for the sins he doesn't commit. And like, that's correct. Like, there's no fucking blood on the page. There's no like ugliness. And I had this professor at ASU, and he was a novelist, and he was the most pugnacious guy I've ever met. He looked like Wallace Shawn, and he just like, he was not as famous as he thought he should be. And he just had this energy of like grievance, but I liked him because he was like honest about it. And he read a chapter of my novel that was for my dissertation, and he said, there's nothing of the darkness of like human living in it. And like, I felt its truth the moment he said it. Is like, he was kind of saying, you're bullshitting, like you're making literature. And I'm like, I look back at that novel and I'm like, yeah, I was bullshitting. Like, I wanted to write a big old, it's like football's a big deal to me. My dad was like, he claims he's the 3rd fastest player on a team with O.J. Simpson and Earl McCullough. Well, they have the record still for like the relay, and Earl McCullough was like an Olympic. Like, my dad was a great football player and like basically a legend. So I was gonna write this big old football novel, multi-generational, and it just didn't capture like what I was going through. And I think my passion is basically like finding forms that are honest enough or something, or like guileless. Like, that's what Jesus likes in people, right? Like, my faith, you asked me about if there's anything from the Gospels that I wanted to talk about. And the one thing that always comes up, and people don't explain non sequiturs in the Bible enough. So like in John, when Jesus gives the speech and he says, I'm the blood, my blood is wine, and I'm made of bread. And everyone goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, they all leave him, everyone leaves. He loses all of his disciples, and he turns to the 12 and he says, will you also leave? Simon Peter, of course, never thinks. He jumps in and says, well, where will we go? We know that you're the Christ, you have the gift and the word of God. And Jesus says this strange thing that's a non sequitur. He says, well, I picked you 12, and one of you's a devil, he says. Well, what does that mean? You tell me, you went to school for this. Like, Jesus, why are you bringing this up? Yeah. Will you also leave? He says, no. Simon Peter. And then Jesus says, but one of you's the devil, and I picked you 12. What is he saying? What's the point?
I know we had talked in our conversation about, and you used the word Luciferian, this phrase of the struggle of, like you said, I want to win the Pulitzer. You have he makes these zines that are poems that are beautiful. I will read one of them in a bit, but it's called Give Me the Pulitzer, and other poems.
Well, Give Me the Pulitzer. I think that's...
Let's do it. So it's called Give Me the Pulitzer. It's fine if Russell Wilson says he's trying to win a Super Bowl. The NFL actually seems to encourage it, all these men wanting to win Super Bowls. Meanwhile, if I declare that I'm trying to win the Pulitzer, I think your average Joe or Jane would consider that sophomoric and, frankly, jejune, and they wouldn't be wrong. But I mean, shit, they gotta give it to somebody, right?
Nice.
And so I think what I love about your art and your poetry is it has this rawness to it and a sensitivity, like you said. And you shared a picture with me that I think would be fun to share, and I put it on the slide. Is that okay? Do you want to explain where this comes from?
Yeah, this is at the Our Lady of Guadalupe Festival in La Habra, California in 1984, and that's me going, I don't think so, dude, this is terrible. Get me out of here. And so, yeah, I was always like a skinless child, and I sort of think that, I don't know, I don't want to get into polemics about how terrible reality's going, but like, it's going sort of bad, is it not? I mean, suicides are up, like depression, anxiety, like all the metrics that you don't want up are up. People don't want their kids to date Democrats or Republicans, or like, Biden, Trump, we're doing it again. It's like, it's going bad, and I come back to when Jesus says to his brothers, like, you guys can go to Judea whenever you want because they're not trying to kill you. Meanwhile, I tell the world about its evil, so like, it's inconvenient for people. But it's not inconvenient that like people will crucify you, it's inconvenient that like you'll be a bummer at brunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you bring it up if like everyone's dying of loneliness, but bringing that up over brunch is like a bummer? Well, then where do you do it? Like on TikTok or Insta, or people like feed it more and more into domains that like don't feed them back, but get them stuck in then like linear comparison. Like, I have this many likes or whatever. And whether you try to avoid thinking like that, to do a big game in that vein. And so I think a lot of my poems come from that, or like the visual art is a certain rage. I guess I'll show you some visual art now, because like I quit the internet after January 6th because I was like, they got my last goat. Like, I can't keep doing this. And when I quit, I started making this art that I couldn't make sense of. It started glowing in weird ways. And so I guess finding an art where just like presence is, this sounds so cliche and boring. Are we dying of boredom? I hate this. Yeah. Ask me something interesting. This is terrible.
I was just thinking, I think what I love about this photo is because I was a sensitive kid. The fact that they put this on a newspaper, it's a newspaper clipping, right?
Right.
And it says, "Tunes and Tears." That's what it says. And I think our world doesn't do well with sensitive little children. We like beat all the sensitivity out of them. And I know in your story you've talked about some sense of that was kind of beaten out of you, or as you age and you get to be a teen and all that, but you have returned to that in this kind of recent, in the past couple of years, in this like exodus back to who you are, the sensitivity. Like,
right.
How has that been?
Well, I think I made up this fake country character when Lisa was going through chemo, and like it was the middle of COVID, so no one could come and visit us. And then like January 6th happens, and then like the snowpocalypse happens, and I felt so nested inside of like unreality that something burst, and I kind of like went, I call it melting up. Like I kind of lost it, sort of. But I noticed that like I don't know, it's hard to talk about, but I had this moment where I was on a walk with my friend, and there was this guy, and he was sitting, it was after the snowpocalypse, and he was sitting basically in the gutter, and he looked so dejected, and he just kind of looked at me, and I went over and started talking to him, and he was trying to sell magazines. He'd just gotten out of prison. He was my age, but he'd been in prison for like 20 years or something. No one was around because they were out of town, and he was selling magazines, and no one would buy his, and I had lost my debit card, so I got $500 of cash out, and I had it at home, so I just ran home and got it and gave it to him. We had this moment where we hugged. We were both like on the verge of tears, and I'm like, "You're not an ex-con, you're like a human." And it was and after that, my life got very weird, and that's when this art started happening. So I think kind of because of Lisa's stuff, I was wide open, and then I started recording myself doing this music. And I did Leonard Rogers III Jr. was the name of this country singer. Yeah. And his first song was, "I'm on my drugs, you're on your phone." Because like, my girlfriend was always on her phone, and then I was always high, and it's like trying to make it through COVID and cancer and stuff, and this deep alienation. And Leonard is my dad's name, and Rogers is my dad's mom's maiden name. And they were both extremely like advanced beings. And I think through this act of like I would record my phone, I would get the guitar out. It started with 6 strings, but when I broke one, I would keep going, and I'd find weird new tunings. And I'd keep playing and recording, and it was like this, I was talking from a place that was deeply honest, and it became this form of like psychoanalysis, but it was this weird artifact. And when I shared it with my comedian friends, they were like, "This is amazing." And I was like, "I'm gonna get famous from this, the Luciferian thing." Like because I have these podcasters that I love, and my buddy who's quasi-famous is like, "I love this, I'm gonna share it with these very famous people." So I'm like, "This is gonna work." But the thing was, and when I shared it with other friends, they're like, "This is mental illness." And they were both right. And I'm like, I was fucking losing it. And the poems is me landing it. Like, honestly, it was me finding my way back to the page, because I've been in tech, and tech has broiled my brain. It's been like, the paychecks are good, but the alienation is scalding, and I kind of don't know what to do about it. And I preached, everyone in, like, that's the thing, is every job I've had, I tell them, like, I preach the gospel to anyone who listens. If it's a work call, if it's anything, or a job interview, they know who they're getting. And it's someone who's like, human dignity is like #1 for me. And like, if you're struggling, yeah, of course you are. And like, I say this on work calls with people, and my boss said the other day, you have endless empathy for people. And it's like, whether that's true or not, it's like, what my boss picks this up, and he likes what I bring. He values what I bring. So the fact that my job's on fire and the stock price is falling and everyone's like running around basically feeling, I don't know, alone. Like, this is a level of loneliness. I guess I would say that that's my passion, is like, and why finding you guys is important, because I went to the Quaker meeting, we sat in silence, then we went to brunch, and no one opened to me. I'm like, I'm fucking dying, and they're just like, I don't know. To me, the Quakers were great, but it seemed like the blankness is a start, but like, let's open our hearts. And I just found it constricting. And when I came here, Mary came over with like watery eyes and looked at me. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm never not coming back here. Because like, there's sensitive people here, and I think sensitivity is my passion, of like weird right-brained weirdos who just feel it, right? Who just know it. We don't get a fair hearing in this culture. We're stuck in this, like, this is the Trump thing, the QAnon thing. If you want to get to the heart of it, it's about losing the body, right? You lose the body, and then you're stuck in weird ideas all the time, and what do? Well, you just feel some sort of like volcanic buildup, and it comes out in very horrific ways. But if the culture honored right-brained, sensitive weirdos more in forms of expression that aren't like discursive, well then maybe you don't have a QAnon right now. Maybe you have people that are making cool art, or like starting cool clubs or something. So I guess my passion, it has something to do with sensitivity, but like I want to hear about the devil more. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all vibes and it's all good, but it's like, yeah, but you don't have to live that far outside of grace for your life to get fucked up. That's the point, is like, it doesn't need to be a conspiracy. It's bad enough. Do you know what I'm saying? So like The Catcher in the Rye, like Holden gets it exactly right. Like, there's a big crazy cliff and there's like legitimate kids falling from it, and I want to be the person who catches them, because like Holden's, every interaction he has, Holden is coming out of his skin, and people are like, shut up. Be less, but you see, everyone he engages with is completely alienated. Holden noticed that he's alienated and it's not good enough for him. This is why weirdos that shoot presidents carry the book around, because they're like, yeah, there's something there that is correct, that like boarding schools and all these grades, and when he goes and sees his professor when he gets kicked out of school and the professor just lectures him, he sees, here's a kid who just lost his little brother, and the institutions have no capacity to engage the human. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, Journey, like Mary just said earlier, if there's a way out of this, Journey's gonna be a part of it, like out of the morass that we're in. And that's right, and that's why I'm here. It's like, we need to be obviated of this like obsession with ego, I think. And no one spoiled Jesus of Nazareth for me. No one boarded me with him, nobody judged me with him, my parents didn't take me to church, and so when I read the book of John a few years ago, I was like, wait, what? This is what's in the book? It's beautiful, and it's about us. If you're not here, I'm not here. 2 or 3 or more, that's the math. Just me, and yet you notice like that's the way we were taught by Nickelodeon and commercials and Karate Kid, right? This obsession with the protagonist, the one who kicks the bad guy in the face and gets the blonde girl at the end.
Yeah, exactly. I think you said something in our book study time earlier that's making me think of that. And the idea of it's harder to make these roles and these structures and these things that separate us than to connect. But we've been taught to alienate and make structures and put things in little boxes.
Right.
When really we are designed for connection and community. Like the fact that you saw this guy and your heart was warm because he was in the cold. Of course. How could it not be? But why is the little crying kid in us
so
trained
the
out?
story, why I tell the story about the $500 in the magazine is that it's not because it went well, it's because I was with my best friend who looks exactly like you, and that freaks me out. He's my ex-best friend, he's like the coolest guy ever. he's so cool. He's in like the best, coolest punk rock bands. All the girls wanted him, and he just is so kind. But what he told me after this was like, after I gave this money to this guy and had this moment, he's like, I'm scared that you're manic. And I'm like, well, okay, those are my fucking options, I guess. I can be alienated or I can be awake, but if I'm awake, that's a problem for like everybody. Like I've lost so many friendships from this bigness, but like it's always been there. It's always been me.
That kid, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should look at some of your art. I think that would be a cool. There's no good transition to that right now, but
so first time I hand this one around because this is the example of the kind of stuff I want to make. This one might get glitter on you. Good. And I was like, is that rude? And I'm like, art that might get glitter on you sounds like a description of Journey, actually. Yeah. So like, be careful and you might get glitter.
That's cute. I like that.
I'm so nervous.
If anybody uses
it's
it's me.
Yeah, so he's brought some art. So
this story, like, I only brought art that I want to talk about. So Lisa was out of town and she was still getting chemo, but her friend took her to El Paso, and I'm like home alone now, and I'm just feeling like darkness, like I didn't know, because like I feel like her cancer forced me to like finally love, because I'm a little brother. I'm like the consummate little brother, and for once in my life, like it couldn't be about my bullshit. Like I had to do everything and be there for her. And of course, well, this is what Jesus' point was, like, this is the way to love and to give and to be selfless. I'd never felt it before, and I was like in my late 30s. So she left, and I went to Target and just bought a shitload of art supplies. And the young woman checked me out and was like, what are you doing with all this stuff? And I was like, well, like I have no filter. I'm just like, well, let me tell you everything. Psychoanalyst girl working at Target. And I went home and I just kept blending all this piece. I'll take like 20 hours on a piece. Like I've just found a way to like, I will just be the loudest one. And I just kept doing gradients of glitter and then melting it. And then I took a picture of it. And to me, it captures something about like it will keep changing. There's a picture of it on there, right? That's a picture of the work you're looking at its earlier stage. But as these things are flaking off and like getting glitter everywhere, it's evolving. But like the two-dimensional version of it like is there as a kind of like, I don't know, frozen or something.
And that's what I love about a lot of your art, is that it is meant to be touched and it changes, and you don't hold it sacred. If it rips, it rips. If it tears, that makes it cooler. And then if you put one of the pieces of art behind the other, then it changes how it looks. It's like it's meant to be touched and felt and enjoyed, and yeah. Can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this is all with what, crayon? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I'll show you one that demonstrates it. So,
This is your Vanna White moment.
it's so much pressure. That's why it's like weird to be like.
It's yes.
You want to show the camera?
Yes, camera. Actually, I haven't looked at it either.
That's like a face.
I know, it's like a self-portrait.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why this is right side up, because I feel like I look at Munch, right? Or like, why is the Scream by Munch the most popular, expensive painting in the world? Or like, why is the Mona Lisa? I'm sorry. And I feel like I look at the Mona Lisa smile, and what I see is this like deep ambivalence about being like represented in two dimensions of like, yeah, I'm not sure, because her husband wanted her to get painted, or the artist was asking her to sit for a painting, but whatever it is, like, imagine the gaze of a Renaissance painter looking at you, right? It must be fucking intense. We think we're camera shy. Imagine like legitimately a Renaissance master, like looking at your bone structure.
And then putting it on paper so you can see it forever.
And so I see the Mona Lisa as being about like ambivalence about representation, and I see like Munch's The Scream as this like, oh God, like the deep alienation of being electrified. Look at Van Gogh's early stuff. Van Gogh is a like unremarkable artist until like Edison came along, and then you get like an electrified Europe, at which point Van Gogh's work just like it comes completely alive, right?
Where you have a poem about Van Gogh. Would you mind sharing that one? Or
Sure.
tell me where it's at?
How about if you're sharing like this is weird? If anyone wants to look afterwards, I think that's the best way.
Yeah.
Just like-
We will have this out that you can engage with the art and.
I'm too sensitive to people's responses. Like, I've done too much stand-up, so I'm like, if you don't respond with oohs and ahs, then like I feel my deep darkness quite palpably. But that's the point. Like all.
Let's give an ooh and an ah.
And now I will literally kill myself. Oh no. Wait, but let me pass around the art that like. When I'm like, I don't know what's happening, I quit the internet and then I started making art that kind of glowed in a way that I didn't sort of understand. And I think it was all the intensity that was going into the phone. That's the thing, is all the brute force of this like art, to me it expresses like this rage is not mine. Like I didn't sign up for any of this.
Yeah.
Like how much electricity and how much like thinking, and I think we're nuts. And when I stopped and I put the phone away and like quit, I was a big phone user, and when I quit, I looked up and the world was strange. But then my art got stranger, so I think that's maybe a better way to.
Are you okay with spreading it around on the floor?
Absolutely.
Just spread it all around.
You want to even just hand them around?
Just don't steal, and that's the only advice.
Yeah, can't steal it.
It's like
Um,
falling right in front of you.
Yeah, and these are really cool because you told me that they were forms like a kid would draw on for like.
Oh yeah, I got it at Goodwill. It was like, be a fashion designer. It had little figures, and I just started like.
Doodling on top of
That's
it,
right.
layers and layers, but it's cool because the figures come out more so than others, but they're all there. But it's just kind of your Van Gogh poem.
Okay, it's called Vincent van Gogh. Nothing is like the sky. Nothing is like the sky. Hopeless similes, they hallucinate heaven and tame nothing. So even Van Gogh was a liar, I guess. But he at least was honest. You can't paint the sky. You guys are crazy.
Ooh.
And I think that's one of the beauties of your passion and the struggles is that you're taking all of this bigness, as you said, like this bigness that you felt forever, and you're trying to land it somewhere. I can imagine there's times where it feels like, and you've talked about going sane, but in going sane to the rest of the world, it can look like going insane. How do you handle all that?
Well, this is why I'm so delighted to find Jesus of Nazareth. I'm like, that's my passion, is Jesus of Nazareth, because what I think is, we live in a culture that, like, by virtue of its very nature, does not imbibe its own literary wisdom. We have Whitman at the center of the culture. We have James Baldwin at the center of the culture, ignored basically, because those are people that like felt with their bodies in public, unapologetically, right? In the face of like often violence, they expressed themselves from their guts. It's not this wonky thing where like we know that we're right. And so like, I feel relaxed to find at the center of the culture, the people that are for the worst stuff with the shiny shoes at the Baptist church, like their book, what I find in there is like that, well, Jesus tells Nicodemus, you have to go crazy. So like, don't even worry about it. You know, because Nicodemus he's the most scholarly guy in Israel, and Jesus is telling him the news that he can't hear, because what Jesus is saying is like, you can't know that you know. That's the Greco-Roman, that's the madness anyway. This idea of epistemological grounding, that you could know that you know that we know that we know that we know. Well, that sounds like the kind of punditry that gets us nowhere, that we're stuck in, right? The Super Bowl happens, and the next day they go, yeah, but is Aaron Rodgers the greatest ever? Yeah, but who asked that question?
Why does it matter? Yeah.
This endless, I think the Greek mind is weirder than we know. I think a Socrates comes to tell us that, a Jesus of Nazareth notices it. Notice that you guys are crazy. Like, if you were blind and you could see, but because you say you see, you're blind, like, the world you're looking at is crazily constructed. It's a very specific machine that we're a part of. And what was your question? I am just ranting.
No, this is great. I have another question that'll just take us on is, you're passionate about connecting.
Oh, point being that, like, if you're trying to be anything on your own, like, you can't be sane alone. This is Wittgenstein's point. You can't make up your own language. There's no private language. So Wittgenstein in the 20th century, the greatest philosopher ever, says what Jesus already said. He's doing it in terms of semiotics, and he says, you can't have a private language, and I can prove it. Jesus says the same thing. Like, you can't go sane alone. right? We're pack animals, we're mammals. We like pick bugs out of each other's hairs for a million years. Like, we're not meant to be so soberly disconnected.
That was my next question, is how you're passionate about this. How can these people, me including, how can we learn from you, or how can we live into that passion of sensitivity, connection, creativity?
Well, you already know. It's like Lisa, she said, like, you can play any instrument. Like, I'll pick up a bass, but I don't pretend to not know how to play bass. I trust that, like, the bass is a crazy instrument. Like, most of the work is already there. You just hit an open E and it sounds cool, right? It's like we pretend to not know. And I think that, like, inviting people to be okay with how they feel, or like make it, like, it's all good vibes. You go to Target and you're assailed with these like very shallow calls to something that might look like grace, because like write down what you tell someone you're having a hard day and they say like, well, gratitude helps. Yeah, but I just was telling you how I felt, and not, I don't, you know, they tell you to go get professional help or something. And so I have no idea. Do you know what I like? I don't know how to invite people to. Oh, you were gonna.
You have a poem that I think is an invitation that we talked about sharing. So This is Free Donuts. I know he shared some of his poetry with people, but I think this really gets at the heart of how do we connect. So I got free donuts for crying once. This wasn't an advertised deal. You see, the owner and I got to talking when she was boxing up my dozen. She'd been born in Cambodia, done the donut game in LA for a few decades or so, before moving here to Texas. It's nice to meet other Angelinos in Austin, to have earthquakes in common, to stop apologizing for home. Notice he did that earlier, by the way. I asked when she'd arrived in Los Angeles, hoping stupidly that the year was one early enough to spare her, and me, I guess, from at least the hottest substance of that heartbreak. I was a little girl, she said. We ran to Thailand. The plainness of her words ruptured something inside me. Looking back, I see now that I'd binged way too many books on the Khmer Rouge, did I say that right? Khmer Rouge, backpacking through Cambodia back in 2008. The kids come up to you on the streets and sling bootlegged copies of American books about their country. Apparently the most correct and enlightened etiquette as the tourist here is to not buy anything from children who might otherwise be in school. This advice struck me as credible enough, but I couldn't quite get its logic into my actual heart. And these kids were right here. And very cute and very persistent. So I bought and read. I read so much that my traveling partner got annoyed. Let's just go see the country was the idea, and I agreed with her annoyance at me. But the thing was, we'd been shown a column of human skulls in our guided tour of Phnom Penh, gestured towards as a kind of landmark, with less ceremony than I would have expected. I love this line. I'm the sort of person that when you show me a column of human skulls, it's hard for me to just leave it at that. We were in the country for 2 or 3 days, and I read 3 or 4 full-on books. Hell is always worse than hell and far more endless. And here I was now, crying in a donut shop. I met the owner's eyes, pressed my hand to my heart, the kind of frank demonstration that's not at all like me. I didn't even try to not cry. I'm so sorry I managed. And she, without speaking, but in what felt like speech, stuffed a bear claw and cinnamon roll into a little bag, which she placed atop the box on the counter between us. I paid for a dozen, but now I had 14. I felt weird leaving without one of us somehow acknowledging this. Is this a gift? I asked. Yes, she answered. I thanked her and left. And I drove home in that same universe where I was born, where sensitivity is rewarded with donuts.
That's beautiful. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, but she's the one that gave me the donuts, so like she's the genius. I get to write the poem.
No, you took them, and that was a gift both ways.
Yeah, we've talked at Journey before. Receiving the gift is also a blessing as well. But I think that gets at the point of, and this is what I love about you, and have been immediately when you came, I was like, he's one of our people, is because you are open. And you just open, you've been cracked open in some way, or always been open in some way. And I think it invites people into a space beyond this manufactured, pretty, look at me, here's my business, here's all my accolades, here's the Pulitzer that I want. No, it's like, no, forget that. And you even say like, oh, I'll get into this place, I want to win, I want to get the recognition, and then you go, wait, that's not what it's about. I don't make my art for the recognition, I make it because I have to get this out of me. And I think that's what I see with your connection is I have to connect, because how can I not? This is what I've been created to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, that poem for me, it's about, like, one of the first things it's about is, like, the power of the stabilized written word. That, like, someone had taken the time to write about the genocide in Cambodia, and so they took the time, the love to set it down. It wasn't flying away, and it's the fact that it's 2008 is meaningful, I think, because smartphones weren't around yet, that, like, I was able to read the books. Me, now, I don't know if I'd be able to engage and go that deep, so I wouldn't have that memory, that muscle memory of, like, downloading, like, what happened in the 80s there, while being there, is like this really intense thing, and then coming back and meeting her, and when she said I ran to Thailand, I remembered we drove in a car from Phnom Penh back to Thailand, so like, that terrain, I could feel it. I saw cars like in oxen going by, it was, but without my capacity to engage the words and like stabilize our information, like there's no way she and I could share this moment, and I think that's why the line like about sharing earthquakes is important, because it's like we share earthquakes and it has this feeling of like locality, of like availability to localness, that like although I was a chubby little 11-year-old and she was a woman in LA doing donuts, the Whittier Narrows earthquake or the Northridge, like we both felt it, and like because I was able to read these books, I shared something of, and I cared. Most people don't even know where Cambodia or but have someone come in and care, I think to her must have been strange, but it was allowed by other people's work, and writing. But I think the end, I don't think it's that optimistic. I think it's like, I tried to change the last line from donuts to baked goods, because I don't want to repeat donuts. So sensitivity is rewarded with baked goods, but no, because donut means zero, you say. Like, although she recognized that sensitivity was a gift, what she went through in her childhood, like, is an obvious symptom that we don't live in a Pollyanna universe where it's all love and good. And I'm heading back into a world where, like, I have not found especially that sensitivity is rewarded at all. And if it is, it's why you have to go famous, and then you go that crazy, like George Harrison finds out. Okay, that's a new crazy. I tried to express myself, and now I'm Taylor Swift. Oh God. Like, where do you go to get not famous? Where do you go to express yourself without the need to, like, schmooze? Or I tried to go to open mics still for comedy, and I'm like, I don't want to sit for, it'd be funner if we just sat around and like bullshitted. Yeah. Like you see guys at like the Comedy Cellar in New York, and they just sit around the table and they tap on each other and they talk shit. And it's like, yeah, but you could do that and not have a stage and it'd be just as fun. Yeah. Meanwhile, everyone's in their own phone worried about their jokes being good, and it's like, yeah, but can't we vibe? Like, that's why I think Journey's important, is like, someone's got to rebuild the culture. It's not like, people want their politics to be like non-psychopathic or non-antisocial, then they go to HEB with big old headphones on in their phones, and their politics might be the best in the world, but like they're behaving antisocially because they can't hear the old woman asking to get the bagels from the top, right? They're not available in some way. So I don't, like, it's a moment of grace that we shared, and but I think it's a poem that hints at the darkness of, yeah, but it's not in a world where we've learned how to honor sensitivity. And so then you have like Donald Trump, the most sensitive person ever born. His pathological capacity to be sensitive is like the reality that we have to live in, because he obviously has a body, and that's what people are out for now. If you can shake and emote, then that's where people go. Meanwhile, we can't find anyone on the left who's charismatic, We've lost the body into a kind of like the front of the brain stuff. So,
for time's sake, if you had any last little bit that you want to share about this passion, anything, it doesn't have to be nice to me. And then we'll open up to questions.
Well, I think it's what Whitman said. I think he said something like, everything that I share you'll offset with your own, or else it was time wasted listening to me. And I think that, like, that's how I feel. Like, if it touches people, that's good, because like my main thing is to not be alone, because I didn't evolve to be alone, and I wasn't created to be alone, but like I'm alone a lot. And I feel like I've been stricken, I've tasted grace and I know that it's real, but I'm no more likely to live in it than any other bozo. And so I need help. Like, I need to rebuild. I haven't woken up after Lisa's cancer. I haven't really woken up after COVID. I'm sort of constrained. I waited tables most of my life. Working in tech and making this money, like, it feels like a straitjacket sometimes. And so, like, finding Journey has been everything to me. And so I think that's my passion. I wouldn't keep coming back here if, like, the world has been less lonely since I found Journey. Like, and it kind of, when I think of the world, it's a much brighter world, even though I'm like, I haven't showered and it's 3:30 on a Wednesday, and like, I wish I were better than I was. Like, I live with this level of self-hatred that a lot of us do, and like, you guys are lovely, so give yourself a fucking break, I guess.
Well, Cameron, I want to say this has been a joy. I don't care what y'all got, I got a lot out of this. Round of applause. Thank you for being the first person to do this. We've set the bar, so we're going to have some more people throughout the series. But I'm curious, does anyone have anything? It can be a question or just stuff that stirred up in you. If you have a question for Cameron, no promises he'll answer it, because we don't do that here.
I just have a comment on this, is just about connection and stuff like that. I'm the one who tends to observe, and I take pushes to get connection. But I'm looking at these artwork, and they have one view. But when they're in my hand, I feel the texture of Crayola from a childhood and the smell of Crayola from a childhood. So it's like when you're actually connected to something, there's a lot more going on than just watching it from 10 feet away.
Any other insights coming through?
Yeah.
I don't think the mic can go very far.
Yeah.
So.
At the very end, Cameron, you just mentioned like you're not meant for like loneliness, and like we live in a society that's very like independent driven. Like, you know, you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, you know, live independently and be your own person. And like there's kind of like this weird societal stereotype or, you know, needing that sense of connection, like needing that outside of yourself, not just within yourself, but like we're social beings. So like what you said, I think that's really brave that you're able to say that and express that out loud, that, you know, we're not just meant to be in here. Like, that's not where we're supposed to live. Like, it's okay to need other people to fill that part of you. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, so thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the way I frame it is that, like, I think Proust figured this out with memory, and I think Jesus figured this out as well, is that the human soul, to the degree that it exists, is stored outside of the individual body. Like, it's stored everywhere. It's stored in art pieces, it's stored in your aunt and your cousins and the stuff that you love. Like, the human soul we keep for safekeeping elsewhere because it's like too dense to keep. Like, and if you're by yourself, you're like Vecna or something. Like, you'll notice that supervillains in movies these days have this capacity of like this Luciferian suction, this like one place suction, you know, pulling into itself. So I just ramble, and thank you for your nice comment.
I know I've mentioned this in like my P-Flag meetings and everything, but I think, yeah, I can really like connect with what you're saying, because I mean, even as a kid, you know, we're put into these groups. It's like on the playground, you know, you pick who's going to be on your team based off of their skill sets, or you know, you're put in groups like red t-shirts, blue t-shirts, you know, like everything is just so group oriented, like even from a childhood. And so then you grow up and, well, like, you know, middle school, high school, no one really ever pays attention to the people who paint or draw. They pay attention to the jocks, like who is cooler to hang out with, who is the best one on the football team, who is, you know, but no one pays attention to just getting deep, like within, and hanging out with that person and talking with that person, because, you know, art, you have your medium, but you also have, like, so much comes through art. Like it starts here, but then it ends up here, and then it goes up here, and then it's just all over the place. And sometimes, you know, we kind of get the short end of the stick with that, because, like you said, I think society, like, that takes a lot of being vulnerable for people in society that are go, or, you know, like it. I can connect with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, and then the question is, like, well, what do you do with it? Because Instagram's a non-starter for me. Like, I'm deeply scared of my digital form, and I think that I should be, and I think that's why you're finding Jesus of Nazareth going, he doesn't, like, he always tells people, beware of the solid form of it. Be, like, they go, well, Moses gave us bread from heaven, and Jesus goes, this is a fucking story. No, like, the bread is that which comes down from heaven and gives us life. It's like, whatever this is happening now, this mystery, Jesus is trying to tell them, whether Moses did this or that, what, like, the burning bush is still imminent. We're here, right? It wasn't then, it's now. And so,
you know what you could do? You could share it in a place that it may not be, it may be a surprise. Like, sit it down in a park,
right,
and leave it, you know, because someone else could see it and it could spark something in them, you know. Just that, I think art is meant to be, it's our experience, and then you give it and let someone else have their experience.
Right.
So you could do that.
That's a good idea. The problem is when you put it, like, you can show someone a beautiful piece of art, and they're like, you should have an Etsy. And it's like, yeah, but is that the only cul-de-sac available?
But the thing is, no one can, don't even have that conversation.
Right.
Like, let them do what they will with that, and someone could see it and be like, I mean, I was walking down the street in Atlanta one time, and there was just these sheets of paper. It was in a shopping center. We were on our way to a bar. There were these sheets of paper with, like, stick figure drawings on it, and like characters that, you know, leave it up to your imagination what character, what they were trying to portray. And I was walking and I saw it, and, like, my friends kept walking, and, like, I just kind of went back and, like, just kind of looked at it for a little bit, and I was like, the last thing I expected to see was just someone's thoughts,
right,
on my way to a bar. Like, so I just took a moment just to take that in, and I just left it, so maybe someone else could, like, have that moment. So it's like, you know, I think art is that, it's your moment, and then it's someone else's moment, unexpectedly, you know. Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Well, because I don't want to keep everyone here all day, again, let's get another round of applause for If you're okay, I think we can keep the art up here and people.
I'll lay the other ones down, because there's some weird stuff.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Thank you.
Hey, here.
Yeah, wait.
Just a few comments on Zoom. Max says, Cameron connected with me and I'm better for it. He says, face-to-face personal connection is essential for our souls to flourish. And there's a little bit of chat, so Cameron, I would recommend that you read it if you have a few minutes.
Okay.
I was going to move us into a time of prayer, but I'm realizing let's sing a song. And if y'all want to look at even if I'm just singing and y'all are looking at the art, you want to engage with that, let's do that. Yeah, I invite you to come up and get into it. Let's look at it. It's embodied.
Oh, sure.
Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. God, we lift all these prayers up to you, knowing that you already know them, you already got them, and we also know that the prayers that we can't lift up yet, that are too heavy on our hearts, that you are already aware of it. God, help us to continue being this community that we were designed to be and support one another through these prayers in this next week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Joe, you want to bless us out?
Yes. I'll just take this. Well, we talk a lot about passion. It's a word that can mean many different things. Passion can mean a deep love for someone, or that someone feels for each other. Even Christ had a passion. God has a passion. So whether you appear up here one Sunday with Jacob, find your passion this summer. Because even though people who say they don't have a passion, their passion is not having a passion. How ironic. So in this coming months, as we see what goes on in the world and it can be heavy in our hearts, I'll give you a preview of my passion. My passion is to find the good in everything that happens every day, because bad can't exist without good. So look to the good this week. Make it your passion to become more encouraged by the good that is in the world, because it is there. Go in peace. Amen.
Amen.